Happy New Year. I'd like to say I've got really good news for you. Note, I am aura farming with that description of myself, which I'm sure I wrote. So I'm going to talk this morning very briefly about our new report, which is a sneak peek because we haven't finished it. It comes out on the 20th of January, which the theme is Reinventing Hospitality, and I'll explain why. This morning I'm just going to cover some of the key economic drivers of change for this year ahead, rather than looking longer term. Our report's going to go through to 2030. In terms of forecasting, I was just having a conversation early on about, what do we do, how do we do it? The model we use for forecasting takes in this whole caboodle. We're doing a top-down and a bottom-up. And in the end of it, we come out with the food service market, which is 9 different sectors and about 40 sub-segments. And we're currently sizing those in terms of outlet numbers from the end of last year. And then we apply all the thinking about the macroeconomic, societal change and so on to give us a view on how we think the market will change for the difference over the next few years. I'm going to start by looking back at what we said at the beginning of last year, where we were fairly positive. And unfortunately, during the course of last year, I had to say, whoa, we were a little bit too optimistic, because the reality through the course of last year, and I'm sure many of you will have seen this or recognise this. We said that the total market would grow by about 2.5%, but from April we were saying to our clients, no, look, we've got to be cautious about this. We recognised that Donald Trump and tariffs were going to cause some disruption. We actually said we think there's going to be more noise than absolute disruption. The reality is that the noise affected too many people from a business and from a consumer perspective. And so consumer spending is stuck. At the end of last year, we said we think that caution is going to remain through this year ahead. What we also said, and these are themes that we'll reiterate or come back to, we've got to offer value as an industry. Consumers have got disposable income. Wages, real wage growth over and above inflation during the course of last year, it narrowed, but it was still positive. But consumers didn't feel that. And then we also had increased savings rates, some of it which is sort of obligatory into pensions, but some of it's discretionary savings, and those were increasing during the course of last year. We had to recognise that we were going to see closures during the market. We forecast pub closures, restaurant closures during the course of last year, but we could see that the market was coalescing. In essence, a smaller number of better managed businesses which could survive and which would thrive. And so we've seen that, and it's something we will see going forward. It is about delivering more experience, and I'm talking about every aspect of experience, not just being in a site like as we are today. We've got to recognise through last year and again through this year that the economy is just bobbing along. Despite, and I'm not going political, but despite protestations from government that their budget is going to drive the economy, it's not. And that's why last year we didn't see the impact of government spending that should have come through. We just saw more caution from consumers and from business. And of course the budget in November, we were expecting it to be bad, and it was. Possibly worse than we would have expected from a business perspective. So we expect, and we're literally finalising this at the moment in terms of the value of the total market for last year. We expect there will be growth. Okay, so we're not being all doom and gloom, but that growth is below inflation, and below inflation growth. It's a really simple way of just saying we've pushed up price, but we haven't seen volumes increase in line with that. At any metric that we're looking at, we're seeing sales growing, but because that includes price rises, we're not seeing volume growth. And that volume growth comes from consumers basically saying, no, I'm not going to do this because it's too expensive. And that is a real danger for us as an industry. We need volume in order to make ourselves more profitable and effective. So when we look at next year, Katie quite rightly said, "Oh, you're a bit tough." There are some positives, there are some negatives. Let's look at the positives first. So inflation's falling. It will get down towards the 2.5, 3.2 by the end of this year. That's good. It means that consumers will stop getting so much bill shock, and it does mean that the Bank of England will reduce interest rates through the course of this year, possibly even going 3 or 4 times quarter point changes. So that's positive, and in essence what we'll see then is consumers with a bit more money. However, regrettably, because of the cost of business, because of AI, because of loads of different factors, taxation and so on, unemployment is increasing. It's already crept up and it will continue to do so through next year. And that means, it's a double-edged sword. As the economy gets worse, the Bank of England looks at it and says, well, we need to fuel it a little bit by pushing down interest rates. So it's good in terms of interest rates coming down, but it means everything else is not looking so great. And ultimately, because of the taxation on business, because of inflation falling, wage growth starts falling. And so that is obviously a problem, because consumers will not feel as though they've got more money. And then of course with the budget, this was written before the budget, and I stand by it now, so I've kept it the same. Not great news for anybody. Businesses with increased cost, fiscal drag affecting so many more consumers. The band of consumers who have disposable income for eating and drinking out of home are going to be hit. And that's a reality, and that is going to affect us as an industry. Regrettably, politics is going to remain volatile this year and over the next few years. And if we think it's going to get better, I hate to have to say it, but it's not. Because whatever changes happen, it's going to be more divisive, disruptive, and it doesn't look particularly positive. Therefore, caution remains for business, for consumers. And unfortunately, when we look at it post-budget, there are more growth decelerators than there are growth accelerators. And I keep reiterating this, that value remains critical. When we look at good performers in the market, those that are thriving, they are all at the value end of the spectrum. And so that continues through next year. We think that when we look at next year, comps are just going to be really difficult. You cannot pass price on willy-nilly, because consumers just don't have the money and are not going to expect it. We think that price elasticity has come to a stop. So we know that a coffee's £4, a pint's £6, a pizza's £15. You push above that and consumers will switch off. They are already, and they'll continue. We need to get them used to a level of pricing before we can then start putting more price up. The economic challenges continue this year. So inflation puts pressure on price rising. Because consumers know that inflation is falling, if they see prices going up, and I know inflation falling does not mean prices come down, but their expectations are that price rises are minimal. And yet, across the industry, there are increased costs. So it's a challenging environment. Fiscal drag affecting disposable incomes, as I mentioned, and of course business rates. Now we think there will be a turnaround on that. I think there's more noise gathering about it. But I heard Alan from UKH pre-Christmas saying he thought there was some traction, they could get some results out of the government. The reality is it's just, I think they will do something, but it's not going to save everything. And unfortunately business rates will go up for a lot of hospitality businesses, and that will exacerbate the closure of those businesses that are close to the edge already. But the biggest problem is not just about business rates, it's about consumers having disposable income. If, as any operator, if you've got higher costs, you can manage it if you've got people coming through the doors. You can work on that to get more people through the doors. But if those people coming through have less money, that just becomes harder. And so we will see and we are forecasting more closures for this year. And of course, minimum wage, great, in terms of 18 to 21-year-olds earning the same amount as older employees, but of course, it pushes everyone up. And that's going to increase more costs for us as an industry. And then there's another growth decelerator, which has been bubbling around last year. Research that Cam did on this, analysis and research that we've done on it. People using GLP-1 drugs might only equate to about 5% of the population. Well, there you go, that's 5% of your customer base, the operator's customer base, it's kind of gone, or at least shrunk. So it is a concern and it will continue. News this morning, you've got to take GLP-1 drugs for life. So it is a concern. It's something which we had to tackle. We had to get healthier as a nation and as an industry, really challenging because we sell decadence, indulgence. So really quite difficult, but there's going to be another negative drag, I'm afraid. As another growth decelerator, this is from the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Static consumer incomes, if not falling. Consumers may find themselves around 0.5% better off. Woo! Let's all go and spend it down the pub. It's just going to be tricky, isn't it? Yeah, the OBR getting 1.5% growth in the economy, but 2/3 of that taken in taxes. Sorry, Katie, this is why I was quite negative, in terms of the outlook. However, come on, let's cling to some straws. We can get growth, and there are incredibly successful businesses that are going to thrive this year. Got to get used to that. What have we got as possible growth accelerators? So yeah, there's a World Cup, so that could give a nice little boost through the summer. We do have the great wealth transfer from God-loving baby boomers passing their money down to all of us, hopefully. Probably not. But they are spending, and I think the government's tax changes are enhancing the idea of skiing. Yeah, and I don't mean, I'm talking about spending kids' inheritance, yeah? So we will see that, and that's got to be positive. We're going to see more use of AI in terms of targeted marketing, in terms of loyalty, in terms of driving more business. That has to be a growth accelerator. I know that's down to us to make that happen, but that will help. And those brands that are driving value will thrive, as I said before. We think that in terms of future menu development, and this is sort of just focusing just down on menus, but considering that's an integral part of our industry, we've got to recognise that there are significant drivers of change over this year and future years. The macroeconomics are not great. More awareness of health and well-being, whether it's tech-led well-being or just eating better, protein, fibre maxing, so on. Societal changes, we've got to recognise that is happening, whether it's an older generation, whether it's multicultural, all of those factors are changing the nature of society. We've got to recognise that influences in the industry and for menus are coming from social media, not from chefs, and that is from aura farmers around food. That is what is influencing people's choices when it comes to what they want to eat, what they're looking for, and so on. And despite closures, there's really good growing competition from everyone, from our own industry, but also supermarkets are seeing a chink in our armour, and they are going for it. So their meal deals, M&S with their 3 Italian dishes for 10 quid. We will see more of that. Charlie Bigham's with his 30 quid beef Wellingtons. We're going to see more of that, and that is a real challenge for us. We've got to fight that off. Otherwise, they've got the money and the power to win. And unfortunately, there's going to be more taxation, legislation, intervention when it comes to healthier eating. So we've seen that now with advertising. We're clever, we'll get around that, but it's going to carry on, and we're going to see more and more. In terms of impact factors that we've got to take into account, there is reduced frequency. So in essence, we're doing it less often, make it more special. We're eating less, therefore, again, make it more special or provide smaller portions. We're looking for more convenience and speed. So those growth parts of the market are those which are more frequent, more quick, more value-driven, fast food, yeah, you get the idea. We are becoming more knowledgeable and aware through all of the social media and health campaigns and so on. Got to recognise rising costs, going to make it much harder to pass on menu pricing. But, and this is the difficult conundrum, we sort of provide indulgence. And so that, I think, is going to be critical. Got to recognise this is the new normal. Consumers have changed their behaviours. This is where we are now. Get used to it. Unless we do something about it. Consumers can remain squeezed. There's nothing driving growth in the economy. So we've got to recognise the frequency has decreased as costs increase. But things have got more expensive, so we expect better quality. We're expecting better service. We're expecting so much more because we're paying so much more for it. I think prices need to rebalance. Consumers need to get used to them before we start passing on more. And I called it that because of the new normal, we need the reinvention of hospitality. We're going to have continued polarisation. And I've talked about this for a few years, this split in the market between value-driven social refueling at one end of the scale and at the other, the experiential premiumised dining. And yes, there are wacky examples out there. At this end of the spectrum, there's a lot more coming in and giving consumers what they want. Detroit Slim's a great example in Manchester of Detroit-style pizza cooked oblong in a tin, deep tin. Not expensive, but giving consumers what they want in a fast food environment. Last year we talked about, our key theme was friction-free and the pleasure principle. And I think, Kate, that sounds like something which is a little bit on the personal side.
More positive.
It does. So the pleasure principle obviously is about doing things less often, make it special, give us more pleasure for that experience. Friction-free is all about simple, fast, technology-driven. Yep, get that. We've got to deliver right across the industry more pleasure principle experiences. And I've got a couple of examples. The likes of Trocadero's at the Cross Basket Hotel in Glasgow, celebration of life's finest delights where champagne flows. That is the principle we've got to keep delivering. Whether it's dessert trolleys like at Carbone, whether it's about creating memories. And yet, you know, Jeremy King, brilliant restaurateur, and talking about his London base, but trying to do things to get people to go out later and to create more memories. In his words, if we look at people as an opportunity to give someone a great time and succeed, that's what our business is about. If we just look at them as money, we failed. We are going to have to, right across the industry, concentrate on delivering more of those memories. We've got to hype the experience, using the examples from Permanently Unique Group of Phoenix and Louis. Deliver escapism. We'll set the stage, transport you to the golden age. And it's only a couple of experiences, but those are great examples of what we need to do as an industry to really drive consumers back to us. There's also an opportunity, though, to return to basics. And I love this from Metopia. I picked up on this because of a quote from Tim Foster, who many of you will know and love. He talked about Metopia, loving the movement of food, cooking over fire, chefs talking, interacting. These guys are the new rock stars, and they're loving it. That is what is going to create more movement within our industry to draw more consumers back. We've also got to, and I've got another example next, about reinventing loyalty. We've got to recognise when consumers are coming back time and time again, that we ought to reward them for their custom. We can't just expect them to use us frequently and not get something back. So I love the idea of the Club Prezzo pricing from Prezzo Italian. Yeah, you get cheaper pricing. It's about pubs having the little button saying, you know, this is regulars pricing. Those are the sort of things that I know are discounting to people who are coming already. That will encourage more people to come. So when we look and our forecast for this year, and we are literally in the middle of it now. It comes out, our report comes out on the 20th. Our gut feel, and unfortunately the report isn't built on gut feel, it's built, with a highly complex, I'm not going to say algorithm, it's a bloody big Excel sheet, but you get the idea. All of the top-down influences and the bottom-up outlet numbers and pricing, etc. We can only look at about 1.5% growth, gut feel. Never mentioned that before, and it's not going to drive what happens, but that's a gut feel as to what's going to come out. So no significant growth, below inflation, because everything remains under pressure. Consumers, so if business rate shuts more sites, it means that it's good. There are fewer but better managed. But unfortunately, if consumers lose their local, whether it's pub, restaurant, cafe, whatever it might be, they will reduce their frequency. Overall, it's quite negative. Passing price becomes harder. Value scrutiny becomes more evident as switching. We're going to see more polarization. Value-driven social refueling is going to continue. But there are growth opportunities where brands can capture the zeitgeist. Because of the way in which social media works, we are seeing brands that you can't even call them brands. Has anyone seen Fat Pat's in Manchester? Yeah? The little kiosk in a back alley, not a kiosk, a window in a back alley. I mean, it is not pleasant experience. I've stood amongst the bins and the delivery riders, which was quite interesting when we were videoing. It's amazing how many turned away from the camera and hid their faces with masks. Amazing, funny. But you've got a brand like Fat Pat's that I was talking to someone who travelled from Sheffield to go to Fat Pat's. I said, what are you going to do now? He'd got his bag through the window. What are you going to do now? He said, I'm going to go sit in my car in the car park, eat it, and then drive home. That's what happens. If you can capture the zeitgeist, you will thrive. It is about harnessing social media and really putting older experience outlets under pressure. And we will see casualties. We saw it at the tail end of last year with Pizza Hut. And of course, the question was not as to why. The question was, I didn't realise Pizza Hut restaurants still existed. And there's a reality there, and it's a lesson to anyone managing established brands. So we think that service is going to become really important, and that's difficult when labour costs are under pressure, really difficult. But I'll end on a positive. It could be worse than 1.5% growth. It could be worse. My message for next year about reinventing hospitality is in our hands. It's up to us as an industry to do things to drive more consumer usage. And if we do that, we will work. Consumers want us to. So it's up to us. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Simon. It is going to be a tough year. There's no doubt about it. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. Does anyone have one they would like to ask Simon? I assume you're staying around as well.
Yes.
Yep. Mark, at the back.
Thank you, Mark.
Can you shout?
Thanks, Simon. Just two things. One is, that's it's clearly like not going to be a market share game. Who do you think is the brands that do the best in taking market share? And then also secondly, I noticed it's one of those challenges, sustainability and environment work anywhere. And that sort of feels a bit like where both consumers and businesses are to me to a degree. What are your thoughts?
Okay. So in terms of those segments that will thrive, they are going to be along the value-driven social refueling spectrum. So coffee shops will still thrive, but when we look at the growth brands, it is people like, and we've seen a divergence of brands. Simple, cheaper, Blank Street, or more indulgent, more special, or more food-driven. We heard from Caroline later, Watch House. offering a more premium experience, but coffee shops will still do okay because we consumers still want to go out and eat out and drink out and socialise. Fast food. There's a huge number of brands that are growing from small bases, and they are going to continue growing. Plus, the American market entrants, Dave's Hot Chicken is going to continue thriving. Popeyes, Wingstop, all of those will absolutely thrive. Interesting to see Popeyes, one of the fastest growing fast food brands last year, introducing a saver menu. You're recognising that they've still got to attract consumers without charging too much. I think fast food that becomes more expensive could be under a little bit of danger. We have identified these, and I can't remember off the top of my head. Market halls. So whilst we've seen absolute growth in market halls, we think there's still more scope for those. They don't always work, but generally the principle of putting street food in an indoor environment, running a bar, providing great food experiences that are pretty good value because we're doing some of the work ourselves, they will thrive, and they'll take over more retail spaces, the likes of Freight Island in Newcastle replacing Debenhams. Those sort of things will continue. There's others in terms of the thriving, I can't remember off the top of my head. Those that are going to see it more challenging, independent pubs, they're going to struggle. I think a good conversation, Poppy earlier on, about tenanted pubs. We think that despite the challenges, they'll still be okay because the pub companies will do everything they can to keep their tenants going. But independent pubs don't have that support, and we'll see more close. Branded casual dining restaurants have got a real struggle, and so brands that are undifferentiated are going to continue that decline. Absolute numbers, we have finished it with forecast. There is an increase in branded casual dining restaurants this year, despite TGI's closing another 20, whatever it might be, because a lot of the sites that were closed last year will come back on stream. So people will be snapping up Pizza Hut sites, etc. The other thriving sector was contract catering. That continues to grow quite significantly. And then the other one, from a challenging perspective, can't remember off the top of my head. Sustainability, I'll answer that one, skipping. Yes, it's important to consumers, but it's a luxury. Consumers expect the brands to do it. It's not going to add anything to you. I think in the minds of consumers, we expect everything to be done for us. We still want to go out and have a good time. And I always say this, being very cynical, if you think about younger generations being absolutely really critical about sustainability, just look at the aftermath of Glastonbury. They don't give a toss when it matters.
Thank you very much.